Hi guys, welcome to Office Blokes React. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively in a room, all three of us make the Office Blokes.
Yes, we do.
Correct.
I used all the words there at the time. Yeah, there you go. We are, as hopefully most of you know by now, going live for a Super Bowl watch party, 12th of Feb, same time as the Super Bowl, coincidentally.
Wow.
And we hope to see you all there.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Just simple as that, really, yeah.
Prizes.
And also huge thanks for 100 million views. It's absolutely crazy.
Incredible. Yeah.
Massive achievement.
Yeah,
All thanks to
absolutely
you.
mental.
You.
Right then, this is a bit of Urinating Tree, the Haters Guide to the Super Bowl 57.
Right, okay.
Is there a lot of haters? Is there a lot of
Yeah, of
sour
course there will
grapes
be.
of people whose team isn't in there?
49ers and Bengals.
I was going to say, probably some of the teams that haven't made it, probably not overly keen, are they? But
Yeah.
Can't take it away. I mean, great records, both of them. So going into the, I think they were both 16-3, weren't they? Going into the playoffs, Eagles and Kansas City.
Did the Eagles lose 3? Or was
Yeah.
it 2?
3.
Was it 3?
Yeah.
Another thing is Urinating Tree is fast. And is sort of content. So I think
he's got to keep up with him.
there's going to be a lot to absorb here. So let's go for it. The Haters Guide to Super Bowl 57.
These playoffs honestly turned out close to what I expected. A few teams at the top surrounded by frauds and those punching above their weight. Even then, any given Sunday had us hope that someone could rise from the ashes, but not really this year. Too many variables and injuries for anyone to pounce. Those that didn't make it further, I'm sorry, but it's time to read your epitaph. What could have been? That's the only thing I'm thinking after this one. Buffalo was oddly off throughout this match. They were trying to hand Miami a hilariously embarrassing loss at home, with all the narratives and emotion in the world, yet they still couldn't capitalize. They were too battered by injury on the offensive front. Even with the lead in the second half, the Bills escaped themselves. It's a damn shame, but it was a near impossible task with Skylar Thompson under center. If the Dolphins have a healthy Tua, they probably win this one, which makes this season feel lost. So much hope at the beginning of the year only to have it all fall apart at the worst possible time. Josh Boyer's defense was part of the problem, and he's been canned. Just hope Tua doesn't have any lingering effects from those concussions. If he does, your ass is in the jackpot. It's one thing to be without your best weapon on the field of play. It's another entirely to be closer to victory than you ever expected, yet still come up short. There's a dignity in being slaughtered. You don't get your hopes up. You acknowledge you were completely outmatched and move on. But when you're competitive, dare I say the better team, it's a brutal way to go out. The Ravens chant nevermore and croaked like Poe in an alleyway. What did you think the problem was? It was the offense. Like it has been for the past 2 months. This team wasn't to be trusted, and they confirmed it with a QB sneak at the 2-yard line that backfired horrifically.
Oh no.
Was that imitation Lamar going rogue? Whatever it is, J.K. Dobbins is the next in a long line of Baltimore skill players that are living. As a decade of
89
pain
is so well.
continues,
He did
prepare for
all right,
the...
didn't he? He
Tell
did
you,
all right.
so well to get by, and then he shook one tackle, and the other guy just pushed him a little bit too.
It was almost like they were letting him go just to dangle the carrot a little bit.
I know,
Yeah,
he got
yeah.
so close, didn't he?
How did that happen, though? Right there.
Fumble.
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, you got to remember the impact of going on a quarterback draw like that, where you just sort of like going like that, so everyone just locked in
Just
like
trying
that.
to
Yeah.
pile through on those.
Just
run
everyone
over the
locked
line,
in
weren't they?
together
But
like that, and you've got the ball, and you're just hitting a
popped
brick
out,
wall.
wasn't it? Yeah.
You've got to try and get through that brick wall.
Yeah, fair enough.
biggest offseason in franchise history. It won't involve you, Greg Roman. Quoth the Ravens. There's the door. The Chargers chargered so hard that it outchargers any chargering past. If I were them, I would pray to the Lord for forgiveness, for they have committed the ultimate sins. Getting endless opportunities from T-Law imploding under the bright lights. A 5-turnover differential, all in the first half. A 27-point lead in the second quarter. I always felt the Chargers were escaping their own incompetence all season, but this is something different. This is their magnum opus. Years of horrifying self-inflicted failure pale in comparison to the outright larceny committed on whatever's left of their fan base. It was special. Something Falcons and Texans-esque. They checked down Joe Lombardi's pink slip, but they should have gone further. You don't recover from this kind of loss. You have to wipe it clean. Keeping Brandon Staley around proves that this franchise is forfeit. Just watch the same shit happen next year. If only games were played for 30 minutes, right, Brandon?
Son of a bitch, you just blew it!
I'll give them credit for being one of the rare 7 seats that can keep up in the pity playoff invitational. for about 3/4. They kept up with the gun show, and not many can with San Francisco. We all wondered if we were going to laugh heartily in Santa Clara, but then... yeah. Total collapse where the entire team met the blue screen of death. Even in the face of Brock not having the prettiest game, Seattle ran out of gas and it showed. Hell of a season, though. There wasn't much to expect from this team, and they exceeded all goals and then some. Can't shit on them for what they did, even with forgetting how to play football in the fourth quarter. Seahawks, you'll be fine. Put some used chewing gum in the leaks and call it a day. I couldn't shake the thought of Tampa Bay somehow bullshitting to a win against Dallas. Too many elements at play. But that's why we call the playoffs a clean slate. It shows us how terrible the Bucs were this season. Dallas brought their A game and put this pathetic team to bed. It was a mercy kill if you were to ask me. Tampa somehow took their awful play, horrifyingly bad offense, and clueless coaching and made it even worse. Tom Brady did his best imitation of 2015 Peyton Manning behind a running game that predictably didn't do shit. The Cowboys terrorized their opponents so badly that it could be deemed a glorified bye week. Byron Leftwich may regret not taking the Jags job, but Todd Bowles will continue to have Dick LeBeau syndrome. Excellent coordinator, terrible head coach. Welcome back to hell, Bucs. It's gonna be a long free fall as Brady becomes a Raider. Oh, so Tom Brady's retiring again? Oh, great. I'm not being fooled by this one again. I'm not mentioning a comment on this until he's dead and buried in the ground. I learned my lesson from last year. I still want him to be a Raider, though. It'd be hilarious.
Is that the word on the street, is it?
That he's retiring?
No, he's going about being an LA Raider.
Wow.
I think it's just a
it's
joke.
just a joke,
I think
is
it's
it?
just because
Yeah.
he's retired multiple times now.
Twice.
Right.
Is he still going through a divorce, or has that happened?
Giselle Bundchen, whatever her name is.
Because I'm thinking, depending on how the divorce goes, you may have to
Come back.
get back
You
on the
think
pitch.
come back? She's as wealthy as him, isn't she?
I don't know.
She's a supermodel.
All right, okay.
She's one of the original, the elite, like Giselle. Remember Giselle, the supermodel?
No.
That's her.
No, fair enough. I didn't know that. So she'll have all of her money and half of his money
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
probably.
Because what's hers is hers and what's his
Yeah,
is hers.
absolutely.
You know how that works, Dave.
Yeah, I know exactly how that works.
Former Vikings coach said it best. They are who we thought they were. Frauds. A glorified 9-win team that ended up shooting well above their pay grade and finally got called out for it. Minnesota should have learned to fortify its defenses. When going up against the Giants, it felt like they could do nothing to stop them. You can't look at how poorly they played and tell me this was a quality football team. Ed Donatel butchery all season. Firing him afterwards is too late. High-end talent isn't enough to bail out whatever that was. And it was painful. Daniel Jones and Saquon had a field day. You gave New York the worst thing you could have offered. Legitimate hope. Kirk Cousins may have had a good game, but his legacy in Minnesota is set in stone. A 3-yard check down on a 4th and 8. Perpetually coming up short. The story of the Kirk era. It's a shame he's gonna be Bill Buckner and he doesn't deserve it, but that's how the human brain works. Despite this being a winnable game, the Jags should feel no shame for the season they had. Going from shag clown to clowning LA's failson is impressive all its own. But even then, they weren't ready for a deep push. Despite everything given to them by the Chiefs to win. Despite Patrick Mahomes being injected with enough Toradol to knock out an elephant. Despite KC's defense being as suspect as Carmen goddamn San Diego, Jacksonville couldn't capitalize. Any chances they had to win were squandered. Opportunities not converted. Fumbled away like Jamal Agnew in the red zone. Alas, all you can ask is what could have been. Watching Chiefs fans squirm would have been an outstanding sight. But once again, Duval was undercooked. But what a future you seem to have. A legitimate franchise QB manning the helm to hopefully catapult the Jags back to contending status. It's a beautiful thing. The only downside I can really think of is being stuck with Trent Baalke for the next 5 years. To be fair, that may be a brutal punishment all its own. I tried to ignore how awful they looked against the Dolphins. I overlooked a ton of red flags that popped up about this team over the year. The narratives were just too good. A snow game in Buffalo, strong favorites against Cincy, Damar Hamlin in attendance. The Bills made sure it was a storybook ending. The tale was Rumpelstiltskin. The Emperor is without clothes. Buffalo, with everything trending in their favor, laid a massive egg. What doesn't frustrate me is the inconsistent offense, nor the persistence on Zone D, nor being outclassed in every facet. It's that this was supposed to be the year. All the talk about how Buffalo got screwed over by a coin. Everyone proclaiming you to be a Super Bowl favorite, myself included. The big signing of Von Miller? To be fair, I don't know if a healthy Von would have helped. The Bengals were just the better team. And I honestly have no idea what you'd do if you're the Bills. This was your best shot, and you muffed it. Overused like Josh Allen on offense. He is their crutch. And until let go, they are doomed to the same fate over and over. Nobody circles the wagons of futility like the Buffalo Bills. This outcome shouldn't be surprising. The Giants were playing way over their heads all season. Marching into Philly was their death sentence. Merely being chucked into a gladiator pit to be slaughtered by eagles. They were a far superior class of team, and it showed all game long. Philly forced Daniel Jones to beat them with his arm. And he just can't do it. The G-Men didn't stand a chance from the opening kickoff. And it was a slow and painful death for 60 minutes. It's a damn good season for a team that needed it, but this outcome leaves them with more questions than answers if you believe it. New York has a fascinating offseason coming up. What do you do with Danny and Saquon? Keep one, both, or neither? Does management feel that this season was a fluke, or do they have potential for something more? There are arguments either way, and I trust Shane and Dable to guide them down the right path. They've earned it after this.
Do we have a figure for the cap? Because I know we talked about it and Googled it, like the salary cap.
Oh, I don't know.
Because it said that knocked two of the signings took 45 million off the cap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't remember what the figure
No,
was
I
because we
can't.
literally at the end of a video started Googling
Yeah, we
things
did.
like
That's
that,
right.
didn't we?
Yeah, I
Can't remember.
Couple
But they
of
all
weeks ago.
go over it anyway and pay a penalty, don't they?
That's not what they do.
Not all of them, but I think most of them. I think pretty much everyone bar one team.
Right.
Right.
Is it
I
that
saw-
same?
I was at the basketball one. I saw one of the. I saw the stats on one of them, where pretty much everyone goes over and pays the penalty.
Is it the same thing you were talking about? You two were talking about with Chelsea the other day, where they sign people for like 8-year contracts or whatever.
No, it's a little bit
Did
different.
they not do that?
It works different. We have what they call financial fair play over here.
Yeah.
So you've got to be in a certain means of what you earn as a club to what you spend. It's got to be a balanced ratio.
Right.
So clubs don't go out of business.
You've got to be able to finance it with your incomings, basically.
Yeah. But didn't you say that,
But,
that Chelsea are signing people
Chelsea, yeah.
for ridiculously long contracts because
He's
they,
the owner. He's the owner
they
of.
can't pay him yet or something?
The owner of Chelsea's the owner of an NFL team as well, isn't he?
Yeah, because we're like a
Honestly,
consortium, aren't they?
They're a consortium. That's
Ted
Todd
Bowley.
Is it Ted or Todd?
Oh, you know what? I don't know.
Ted or Todd Bowley.
Is it Todd Bowley?
It's one of them, innit?
Yeah.
He's an NFL owner,
Right.
and I want to say he's at LA somewhere. Is it Chargers maybe?
It might. I just
Yeah.
can't remember now. I can't put my finger on it.
No, I mean neither.
But,
Let us know in the comments who is he. I know he's an NFL owner, and he's trying to sort of like do a similar sort of like model from the NFL into the Premier League. And the Premier League don't really accept it because you can only do a 5-year. You can only put them on 5-year contracts.
Yeah.
But you can't. You're only going to be able to put them on 5-year contracts going forward next year. Most people only do 5-year max, but he's brought in an 8-year contract, and he's amortising it over 8 years, which gives you spend over 8 years rather than 1 or 5 years. So if you sign someone for 100 million, you can amortise it 20 million a year or 30 down or whatever. Whereas he's doing it over 8 years. The only problem with that is if all the players he's bought are shit,
You sign them for 8 years.
you're knackered.
Yeah.
You're going to lose a lot of money.
You're going to lose a hell of a lot,
Yeah.
which will then go on your books for financial fair play. So when you try and sign another player to try and make your team better again,
Yeah.
won't work.
I think they're gambling, which is a huge,
It's a massive gamble.
They're gambling on them being great and being like Kings of Europe for like the next 10 years and getting loads more revenue in. Whereas in the Premier League, it
Don't
ain't
work
that
like that.
easy.
Don't
Not with the
work like
amount of
that.
teams now that are up there.
It'd be like someone signing in the NFL. It'd be like signing sort of like I don't know, the best quarterback in the league, the best receiver in the league, and the best running back in the league,
And just expecting to win the
paying
Super Bowl.
paying them extortion amount of money, and then saying that's what's going to win us a Super Bowl, and then all three of them getting injured, and then you're going, shit, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
Everything was on them players,
Yeah.
and now they're not there, and
Exactly.
then you don't even not only that, you don't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you just nosedive into massive debt.
It's a huge gamble because, I mean, if they're doing that, do they not realise that if they can do that, then other teams could do that? I know they're trying to put a cap on it now.
They're going to stop it next season.
But other teams could have done that as well. But it must, I don't know, it's just a bad
It's a
model,
short-term
really.
strategy, isn't it?
If it
It
works,
is.
it's a fantastic strategy. Everyone will try and do it if it works.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're capping it anyway
Which
next
if,
year. But they won't
if
be able to
everyone
do it.
did do it, then it sort of
But
like...
it could also be the collapse of the league if everyone did it.
Yeah.
It could also
Everyone
create
just
the
goes
league
into
to collapse.
administration
Yep.
overnight, one after another.
Congratulations, your team still can't make it past the second round of the playoffs. It's the greatest tradition in the NFL world. One that truly allows Dallas to earn the title of America's team. The nation celebrates when they're eliminated. Best of all, it was in a game that the Cowboys could have easily won. Their defense played valiantly throughout, but all it did was reinforce so many narratives about Dallas that you could mistake it for the 80s TV show. Predictable follies abound. Defensive players holding their ground for the offense to do whatever the hell it was pretending to attempt. Dak Prescott knew this was a legacy-defining game, yet fell apart when it mattered. Kind of like the Cowboys themselves, if you think about it. Any situation where you need your absolute best, Dallas falters. And everyone knows nothing's going to change. More of the same old things are going to keep popping up in the future, which includes the most hilarious play to end a game since Dak running a QB sneak up the middle with no timeouts. No, he's not the Blacker Cousins. That comparison's insulting to Kirk. The gods have a cruel sense of humor. They'll build up teams and give them a false sense of confidence only to humiliate them in big moments. I had a feeling this was going to happen to Cincy. They were getting way too cocky, talking so much shit that no one in their right mind could back up. Eli Apple and Mike Hilton running their mouths, Burrowhead Stadium, the fucking mayor of Cincinnati issuing a paternity test for Mahomes. You're just asking for trouble. A healthy serving of humble pie must be delivered by a man with one healthy leg. I want to say one thing. The ref ball was especially heinous. An incredibly...
What happened there?
Well, he just dropped it, didn't he? He went to put it up and he drops it.
I want to say one thing. The ref ball was especially heinous. An incredibly fucky game that felt manipulated as hell. Even then, the refs weren't the main reason the Bengals lost. They did this to themselves. A backup offensive line hurt them at the worst moments. Burrow chucking arm punts on 3rd and short. And the coup de grace, a back-breaking 15-yard penalty sending the Chiefs to field goal range. Shades of the 2016 wildcard game. Brutality in slow motion. Victory within grasp, yet manages to slip away. Forced to swallow a pill of bitter regret. It's the pain of the postseason. And the cost of glory. A true shame. Injuries have destroyed the Niners in 3 of the last 5 seasons. In the ultimate curse, it happened again. San Francisco was decimated by forces beyond their control. Losing 2 QBs is hard enough, but the 3rd time was finally the charm. Big Cock Brock was cut down by a fucked elbow. Having no choice, they were forced to chuck the eternal...
I know we've seen that before, but that looked a lot worse from that angle.
Did from that angle,
His elbow kind of bent back, didn't it?
Yeah.
Not good at all.
Yeah, I didn't realise that the other guy who came in as well got injured as well. And that's why he came back on.
Yeah. Wow.
Brock Purdy came back on and played. But he couldn't
Really?
throw it, he had to keep just handing it off.
Wow.
Which kind of gives you game away, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does really, yeah.
Journeyman Josh Johnson out to play the biggest game of his life. Before he was also knocked out of the game. You're forced to rely on a Brock that can't throw a football more than 3 yards, you're done. Their entrails used as meat for a cheesesteak stand. Maybe those will show as much unnecessary fight as the Niners did.
Oh, yeah.
Horrifically undisciplined. Even if the Eagles got a ton of breaks, they were winning this.
They didn't show that the other day, did they? When we watched it on the game, yeah. You saw, just grabbed him and just launched him to the floor. It was quite funny, actually.
Meat for a cheesesteak stand. Maybe those will show as much unnecessary fight as the Niners did.
Boom.
Horrifically undisciplined. Even if the Eagles got a ton of breaks, they were winning this one easily regardless. It was a funeral. And Kyle Shanahan is Sisyphus. Continually pushing the ball to a star QB on top of the hill only for it to get hurt and fall off the other side. Such a terrible fate. Pray for his children. These playoffs have played out as I've expected. A handful of good teams surrounded by shit. 2 of the best have made it here. The AFC is being represented by a common one. Time is a circle. No matter what everyone fancies about the league and its teams, the same outcomes tend to occur over and over again. We may speak of the rivals ready to take the Chiefs off their pedestal, the Chargers and their talented offense, the Broncos bringing in Russell Wilson in a huge move, the Raiders managing to exist, not to mention Buffalo and their revenge tour were gearing up to finally exhume their demons. Kansas City was getting cocky. Their haughtiness cost them the last few seasons. The Super Bowl against Tampa Bay where they were crushed by hydraulic press. Don't forget last year where they went out to a sizable lead against the Bengals only to be one-upped. The King was seemingly on his last breath. Facing a deep cap crunch, losing one of their best offensive weapons in Tyreek Hill via trade. You'd think the age of the Chiefs would be over, right? Not really. When you aim for the King, you best not miss. While inherently flawed, there are still weapons out the wazoo. And with Patrick Mahomes under center, they will always have a chance at greatness. Even on one leg, he will make magic happen. All the while, every broadcaster takes turns filleting him during games. There is some justification to it. He's the new face of football, you could argue. A man who enjoys ketchup on steak and driving a stake through the heart of his enemies. This includes Cincinnati. Oh, what a brutal sight that was to witness. The weapons that flank him are newer faces, but still threats nonetheless. There is a number 10 similar to Tyreek, but don't be fooled. That's merely Isaiah Pacheco, who's blossomed into a playmaker in his own right. Not bad for a 7th-round rookie. Jerick McKinnon's still kicking as a specialist in the backfield, and staying healthy as well. At wideout, it's a changed group. McCole Hardman's still here, but there's no real headliner of the bunch. Weapons aplenty, however. The main ones being offseason pickups in Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Not to mention Kadarius Toney, whenever he's healthy. They're allowed to be free because another main piece is still around. Travis Kelce. Wherever he is, you must be wary. He will punish defenses no matter what they do. Opposing fans throughout the world will scream why nobody's covering Kelce. Well, that's because he's like Teflon. Nothing sticks. Not to mention that strong offensive line led by Creed Humphrey and Orlando Brown. It's a deadly weapon all its own. And they're not down to backup tackles this time around. The defensive line is the catalyst for all hope on that end. Frank Clark and Chris Jones are the cornerstones of it. Jones has been a beast, but Clark has been disappointing this season. George Karlaftis and Carlos Dunlap are other formidable weapons on this front. All teams have a weakness, however, and this one's flaws in pass protection. It's one of the worst in the league. And despite all that Willie Gay and Nick Bolton do, it can't hide the fact that their secondary is young and inexperienced. They lost Javarius Ward and the Honey Badger in free agency last offseason, and L'Jarius Sneed suffered injury in the game against Cincy. So if he's not healthy, they'll have to rely on Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie, Justin Reed, and Juan Thornhill to man the fort. Not exactly striking the most fear into defenses. You shouldn't scoff at them, however. Kansas City is in a position where it does its best. Hungry. Looking to upend those that doubt them. We made that mistake earlier, and we've suffered the consequences for it. The Chiefs will be going to their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. As that happens, Andy Reid eats the doubters of this team in the form of a delicious cheeseburger. This will be his 4th trip to the big game.
He used to be the coach of the Philly Eagles, Dave.
Did he?
Andy Reid, yeah.
I got distracted by the cheeseburger.
Can't see anything else apart from cheeseburger.
Perhaps his 2nd ring in the process. To get that, however, he'll have to go up against a foe he knows very, very well. This is one of the few times where we will willingly go back to 2020. It was a year of hell, especially for the Eagles. To the glory of every division rival in the NFC East, Philly was terrible. Carson Wentz collapsing under the weight of Doug Peterson and his own propensity for hero ball. Years upon years of drafting fuck-ups. A flawed roster with next to no hope on the way. Howie Roseman about to be deservedly roasted on an open fire. Just under 3 years after a Super Bowl win, they were relegated to accusations of tanking in their final game against Washington. After such a disaster, things needed to change. And Peterson was cast into the abyss for both losing the plot and losing a power struggle. Things looking mighty bleak for the Eagles, right? A bunch of baffling moves would usually signal the doom of all involved. However, Philly chose to unleash their deadliest weapon, a conversion to Satanism. Delving into the dark arts, Roseman found ways to take a terrible situation and save it from falling into a precipice. I would advise against making draft day trades with him. They tend to usually work out in Philly's favor. At quarterback, he's found his prize. Many questioned him drafting Jalen Hurts. He was cast off from Alabama. You have Carson Wentz. His upside at the NFL level is rather limited. That was until this year. In 2022, he burst from the doldrums to become one of the upper-tier QBs in the league. A weapon with a surprisingly accurate and potent arm. A man blessed with maneuverability and finesse in his feet. A true dual-threat option. And oh, the weapons he has to choose from. Try running back, where he not only has Miles Sanders, but the spiritual successor to Darren Sproles and Boston Scott, and a third formidable option in Kenneth Gainwell. Try tight end, where Dallas Goedert has taken the reins from a traded Zach Ertz to become an ever-important safety valve for Hurts. But wide receiver, that's where they really shine. Philly finally hit on a drafted wideout. I know, it's stunning. Jalen Rieger and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside busted so Devontae Smith could fly and catch incredible passes and become one of the best wide receivers in the game. He doesn't get enough attention. You know why? Go back to draft time. Jacksonville breaking the bank for Christian Kirk opened up an opportunity. A legitimate headliner was ripe for the taking. And Philly refused to look a gift horse in the mouth. A.J. Brown, it's time for you and your wallet to shine like gangbusters. The man that helps Philly's offense become a dynamo. I have to give credit to that offensive line as well. One of the best units in the game, bar none. Even with an injured Lane Johnson at right tackle. By the way, has anyone mentioned that Jason Kelce is Travis Kelce's brother yet? Are you tired of hearing about it? Good, because here's at least 50 more statements as such. Here are 100 statements on how loaded their defensive line and edge rushers are. 4 men with at least 10 sacks. Freshly paid Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Javon Hargrave, longtime vet Brendan Graham. Fletcher Cox is still kicking ass as a 3-tech. Not to mention they just drafted an absolute beast in Jordan Davis when he's healthy. They've loaded up with vets in an all-in push. Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Robert Quinn. Quinn's barely played. It's a threat all its own. At linebacker, TJ Edwards and Chargers refugee Kaiser White man the fort, but in the secondary, it's another all-in push. Over the past few years, trades and acquisitions for the likes of Big Play Slay, James Bradbury, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Not to mention homegrown talents like Avonte Maddox and Marcus Epps. Thanks for Epps, Minnesota. Philly is no longer the Rocky Balboa clone they were the last time they were here. They're a legitimate juggernaut. A team that's crushed nearly everyone that stood in their path. It may have been a ridiculously easy road to get back here, but the road still must be traveled regardless. It's also a chance of revenge against the man that was a symbol for past failures in Andy Reid. Him and Donovan McNabb were enemies of the state for a long time. And while both Reid and the team have experienced success since parting ways, revenge is always desired. So what'll it be moving forward? A Kansas City barbecue or a Philadelphia nightmare? Only one way to find out. Any given Sunday is what everyone says. We've seen it happen over and over throughout the regular season, but these playoffs have been rather predictable. Although I kind of expected it. To me, Kansas City's secondary is just too weak to make a huge difference against Philly's passing attack. Their defensive line must get pressure to have any chance. I don't know if they can here. Cincy's O-line was weakened, but Philly's is still formidable. By that alone, I'm going with the Eagles to win. Is it really a jinx? All I know is that we'll be so tired of the storylines, we'll be dying for the game to start.
That was good.
Yeah, Philly like the Liverpool of
Is that what it is?
Don't ruin it for me.
Oh,
you know what I
definitely
mean?
Kansas doing that.
I mean, I'm enjoying this build-up to it, to be honest. We're reacting to a little bit extra NFL, and I'm getting excited about it coming up.
Yeah.
It
should be great.
Nowhere
final.
better to get all your information on the NFL than right here.
Precisely.
Absolutely,
I mean,
yeah.
this guy was all right. He seems to know a little bit about
Knows a
what
little
he's
bit about
talking
it,
about.
yeah.
But
But not as much as us, though. I mean, come on.
Hey? Eli Manning wanted to come on ours, and I said, no, there's no room for you, mate. We need people who know the game.
yeah, it's going to be good fun, the Super Bowl watch-along. Do hope to see you all there.
Yeah.
Of course it is, yeah.
It's just going to be a load of beers with the blokes.
We'll have a good laugh.
A bit of
That's what
sports
it's
ball.
about.
You can all make fun of us live.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. It's all
About our lack of knowledge of the NFL.
Yeah.
Well, you think you are an expert, aren't you?
No, I'm super expert.
You know
I know
all
everything.
of it.
I know everything.
We're a couple of steps down, Dave, aren't we, unfortunately? But
I thought you were 2 steps ahead.
There's a disclaimer at the beginning of everything I say for this is just, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm learning.
We're all learning when it comes to
mate,
NFL.
so am I.
But on that side note, if anyone does have any spare tickets for the Super Bowl and you want to host me over there, I can jump on a flight straight away.
3.
And
3.
there you go. Have Office Bloke Daz accompany you down to the Super Bowl, no problem.
3 tickets.
Free, I don't mind paying.
3 tickets.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Don't
it's
forget
good.
to like and subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.